Very good.
All right. Welcome. Live Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. Taylor's here. Doug's here in the background. Happy to take questions.
You don't sound excited. We're in the middle of the GOAT series, and you're like, Taylor's here. Like we're still getting our guests, right?
You're not the GOAT? No, it's all good. We got some catch up to do.
Yeah.
Because of the GOAT series, we really haven't gone over a few things in the recent few weeks. So let's get that going here. And, we're about to start baseball travel season for my son. That's a whole other story.
busy. Yep.
busy. But lots to discuss here. I mean, even just now, I just go through Twitter or X and just get ideas. And we've been pretty lucky in talking about the podcast recently. Like, a few weeks ago, I don't remember how long ago, it was all this hubbub about the Olympics and the NFL. Since we talked about it, I said, look, it's a different game. It's not that easy. First of all, who knows who's the number one fantasy wide receiver or running back in 2028? Mm-hmm. When so much changes. I mean, 3 years ago, Cooper Kupp was a number one and Adam Thielen was up there, right? And what's going to happen in 3 years from now with the Olympics, not to mention that it is a different game. And what have you seen now? Bijan Robinson just came out and said, yeah, it's a different game. It's a different game. It's made for little people. And Patrick Mahomes is a wizard, but unless he does a lot of flag football, he may not be the wizard at flag football. The rules are different. The athleticism of some of the NFL guys will be unparalleled, but the rules are different, and the game isn't built for anyone to run over anyone. It's
avoidance and shifty moves, right?
Elusiveness, and when you're all the NFL guys are bigger, right? Because they have to take a blow. The flag guys aren't. So there's that. There's another trend that we see again and again. Scott Pioli just got hired as a consultant for Iowa. All the different colleges, Ron Rivera at Cal and Bill Belichick and all these different things going on in terms of management and GM. So lots and lots to talk about, not to mention injuries. And we will touch on the Tush push again. John Gruden put out something about the Tush push, and we can circle back to it. Or do you want to talk about that now?
I'll send that for later. First to talk about Doc, just you saw, like you said, a lot of stuff's going on. NFL OTAs, minicamps are in full swing, and that's when people start reporting injuries, right? News. There's injuries that I research everything every day for you. I don't know anything until they release it right when they come into camp, right? So we're starting to hear that information. I just want to hear, just before we start, about talking players that have come in, signed, whatever. How did you approach OTAs and minicamp when you were a doctor over with the Chargers?
Excuse me. We approached it with fingers crossed. Mm-hmm. About half the teams will lose a player that they're counting on. I'm not saying the star or the number one guy, but someone that they were counting on to start in the offseason in OTAs or minicamps. Some years it was an Achilles. Some years it was an ACL. Half the teams will lose somebody. Recently, who's the tight end tore his Achilles off season?
Oh, Donald Parham.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, is he a number one guy? Maybe not, but still, I mean, I'm telling you, half the teams will lose someone before. So you bated breath. This is why OTAs are non-contact, but there's a number of non-contact injuries. You try and get everyone in healthy. The other thing that you try and do in the off-season OTAs is make sure people are healthy. We've talked about it before. Exit physicals, very important. I'd say, okay, look, if you have a surgery that takes an injury that, if you need surgery, takes 6 months to recover, you have to make that decision in January, February to do the surgery or not do the surgery. You can't wait. Now, if you have a surgery that takes 6 weeks to recover, you may indeed wait. You may wait as long as minicamp here before doing the surgery. So it really all depends. Just today in my practice, I saw a quarterback came to me for the first time with a posterior labral tear. He says he's now changed his college quarterback, changed his arm angle. He used to throw over the top. Now he has to, he sees his elbows lowered because of his shoulder. And he came to me the first time with MRI in hand, and he's got a posterior superior labral tear. I'm like, "You're trying to play this year?" He's, "Yes." "Well,
Yeah.
I don't have a surgery to fix you. All we can do is try injections and therapy and try and work around it right now, because we don't have your season's less than 3 months away. We don't have a surgery that can fix you in time," kind of situation. So he's going to try and get through it with injection and therapy. He's missed the window, right? And it's not his fault. He didn't know, but that's where we look at that. And then the other thing that he say is these injuries that are popping up now, it's no surprise to the team. It's just a surprise to us in public. You have to remember, since the season, there's no mandatory injury reporting. We've told you that there's a lot more injuries than what are listed publicly. We've
Right.
told you that the offseason involves 3 times or more surgeries than in season. So there are a lot of, quote, surprise surgeries. But the only reason it's a surprise is in the offseason, there is no mandatory injury reporting. So unless, a reporter runs into a player in a sling at a celebrity softball game, you're really not going to see that, right? And you're really not going to see any of the things until they start reporting back and there's some media there. And OTAs, you start to hear a trickle, but minicamps is where you hear a lot of the trickle. And we'll talk about some of the minicamp injuries like Anthony Richardson. When did that injury really come up? Was it just the other day when it got discussed, or has it been known about in the building for a while, et cetera? So it's all has to do with the reporting mechanism is all.
Before we jump into those injuries, Doc, I just had a question. So when you were a doctor, is it hard, some of the players you had to keep tabs on more than others? I know some players, they're too busy, maybe go focus on a vacation or so. Did you need to keep tabs on throughout the offseason? I know I'm trying to trigger you on a question here, but there had to be some players, I guess, that was easier than others, right?
Well, we treated them all like adults and professionals, and for the most part they were, but there's a human element where they didn't realize. I mean, there are times where I had to push some guys, et cetera. I actually have we'll save it for when we get Antonio Gates here.
Okay.
I just booked my travel to Canton for August 2nd Hall of Fame induction for Gates.
Oh, awesome.
So I guess he's busy. I'll try and grab him still. I'll tell a story about how we had to get him to come in at one time. Not that he was derelict on anything, but we actually had to reach out to him. And what I always found interesting sometimes, and I'm not speaking specifically about Gates, but a lot of times, at least for me, the team would say, "What's happening with this guy?" I'm like, and I'd tell them what we knew, and they don't know, believe it or not, they don't always respond to management or their position coaches. It's relationship building is what it is. And I usually could get players to respond most of the time.
So I always remember that story you told me, Doc, when you the way you manage the players. If you had a veteran and a rookie in your waiting room, you wait, and whoever was there first, you would wait for them to say something first, because you're not going to.
Oh yeah, well, to clarify,
you say that.
The training room and the locker room, it's a little bit of a jungle. Okay,
right.
The sideline is a little bit of a jungle. Like there are certain areas that the team doctor stands. There are certain areas. Look, there's the quarterback seat. You don't take that seat, right? And there's the O-line and the D-line and where the equipment guy stands. It looks like chaos. It's not. There's unofficial. You know what it is? When you were in high school or middle school, there was a hierarchy on the playground or the lunchroom tables, right? That table was for the 8th graders, right? And the 6th graders knew it. Don't go near there.
Remember the
right?
football team always had like two tables right next to like the line. Remember, like you always know, like you said, those are the tables for.
There's a hierarchy of how things go,
Yeah.
and in the locker room and training, there's a hierarchy of how things go. Look, I'm no dummy in the sense that on the one hand, how do you balance, and head coaches do this all the time, how do you balance a vet versus a rookie, right? And there's some head coaches that try and say, we treat them all the same.
Yeah.
And there's some head coaches that say, the star player can get away with more, right? And where's the happy medium? To me, it's always about consistency. And, if you had a consistent rule where you said vets always cut the line against rookies to get seen by the doctor, you probably could get away with it.
Right.
If you had a rule of whoever came first is who you saw, you probably could get away with not making the veteran mad. The problem is, what if you have a vet that is a non-starter and a rookie that is a star starter? Where do you go?
Yeah.
Do you go by the vet rule or the rookie rule, or the first one there rule? I mean, which way do you go, right? So I solved it by saying I would have a pretty good idea who is waiting to see me next, but you never know for sure, right? Did a guy come through and say, I'm next, and then he went to the weight room and came back, and it looks like he just walked in? Or was a guy been there, or the guy, I can't be sure. So I would come out knowing pretty well, and I would just say, who's next? Now, if the vet said, I'm next, and the rookie doesn't say anything, don't get mad at me that I showed favoritism. Or the star player cut in, don't get mad at me for favoritism. I made it who's next, and you raised your hand. Whoever raised their hand, and the other ones didn't object. Now, if they did object, I would just say, let me know, I'm ready to go. And I'd go into the room,
You had a smart way of doing it, Doc. That's why I always remember.
There's, and a part of it is then just building rapport with guys. And I always say, you have to build rapport with guys before there is a crisis. Okay. If you sit down with players, be it on the plane or on the team bus or at meals or hellos, or start a conversation when you do their entry physical, asking about them or something, or in the hallways, you're building a relationship of trust for when things aren't smooth, right? And in an urgency or emergency situation. And this is why, as much as people say team doctors shouldn't be embedded in the team and they should just be independent and whatever, I don't think it works that way. It's life. I don't think it works that way.
All right. Well, Doc, next one I want to jump into. You already mentioned his name already. Anthony Richardson's the one. You just emailed me too. You and me should be preparing for the Scott Fish tournament. So all these updates that we're going to talk about are going to be very important. I had Anthony Richardson last year after you specifically told me not to, and you were right. I'll maybe learn to listen. It's been a couple 5 years plus with you, Doc. I don't know if I've learned that yet, but let's go on. Anthony Richardson has a injury history. Long. I think the way when he first came out, you were worried about his play style, oblique injuries, back injuries. October 2023, he had that right shoulder AC joint surgery, out for the season. Now they're saying he has suffered a re-aggravation of that injury in OTAs, and he's experiencing soreness, and they're sitting him right now. What are your thoughts on this being close to the season, and how closely related to the surgery, and your thoughts on the whole such situation for Anthony?
Well, first of all, I don't dislike Anthony Richardson, and I am not calling him injury prone. I did make the observation that his style of play is more prone to injury. He ran the ball out as part of the offense on first down. And when he hurt his shoulder, I think it was a play where he scored a touchdown, made a great run, and kind of made it just inside the pylon and then got hit. And as opposed to stepping out of bounds. So I've always said, I don't love the idea of calling a player injury prone, but there are players based on style of play that are more prone to injury. And Anthony Richardson seems to be one of those because he is dynamic, because he takes the risks and puts himself out there. Now, the shoulder is the current issue. I've done a little research on it. I've looked at, as you know, always firsthand reports. There's no video of his re-injury. But if you read the words of Shane Steichen, if you read the words of Ian Rappaport, if you read the words of any beat reporter, nobody has specifically said that he has re-aggravated the AC joint. It's unlikely to aggravate the AC joint without contact trauma. And he's hopefully don't have any of that.
Right.
Could there be some wear and tear at the AC joint? Maybe. But everyone says it's the shoulder that he had surgery on. And they're lumping that as the same injury. But I'm not sure it's the same injury.
Right.
I think it's the same side. I'm not sure it's the AC joint. If it were the AC joint, it would almost be good news. It's you're knowing what's happening. So it's an unknown injury. Is it rotator cuff tendonitis? Is there a labral pathology in that shoulder? Is it just wear and tear on the AC joint and scar tissue from the previous shoulder surgery? Nobody knows. But at this point in time, it just seems to me, first of all, there's an unfortunate changing of the guard in Indy, right? New controlling owners, the daughters of Irsay. That's always ominous for an incumbent. The best ability is availability. Look at what happened to Jair Alexander. He's at the top of his game, yet got released. Anthony Richardson hasn't been that available. And to me, what this is all signaling is, here's your fantasy tip. I'm not saying he's perfect, but Daniel Jones is your starter in Indy.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Anthony Richardson has been there, yet they brought in Daniel Jones. You could say for the backup or to compete. It's been said to compete for the starting job. And if Anthony Richardson didn't hold the job well enough when he was practicing, how is he going to hold the job well enough when he's not practicing?
Right.
And if you look at Shane Steichen and his history, he's like the veteran coming in, or Indy in general has, right? From Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers to Matt Ryan, to others, etc. So I think Daniel Jones has the inside track on the job, not only because they brought him in and the circumstances, but now with Anthony Richardson not taking snaps and not throwing until maybe the middle of training camp or whatever they're saying. I mean, you have to think Daniel Jones has the inside track on that job.
And they had Joe Flacco last year, I remember too, right?
Yes, Flacco, I forgot. Yeah, that was the other one. Yeah, so that Shane and the Colts have had a history of wanting to do this.
And a big thing, like you said, this is the regime that brought Daniel Jones in, right? So this is very, very significant that he's new there. And this
look, if Daniel Jones is brought in and Anthony Richardson is healthy and splitting reps, who wins the job? It's hard to say, right? But now if Daniel Jones is getting all the reps and getting up to speed on this offense in this situation, he's going to have the inside track over Anthony Richardson at this point in time.
I trust you on this because I remember a conversation with you earlier in the offseason about the Browns situation when they're still holding the 5 quarterbacks. And Joe Flacco was plus 1,000. I think it was plus 1,200, almost the same as Shador, same as a little bit less than Dylan Gabriel. Flacco is now plus 115, Doc. So
plus 115?
Yes, it was plus 1,200 when I called you a month or two ago about it. So I trust you on this betting on who's the quarterback situation. If there's a Daniel Jones thing out there, I would look into it, I guess. Yes.
I don't know what the odds are for who the starting quarterback is, but to me, when you told me Flacco was plus 1,200, I said, well, that's a joke. He's being brought in as the starter. I mean, come on.
Offense ready. Yeah, and he did well on offense. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't going to be Kenny Pickett, no offense.
Yes.
I mean, what I told you, I think it was barring injury to Joe Flacco. He's the day one starter, period.
Right.
barring a calf strain or a hammy or something that happens during training camp. Joe Flacco is the hands-on starter. I was just shocked that it was plus 1,200. I was like, oh my gosh. So where are you taking me to dinner?
Yeah, right. Yes. We go to French Laundry like or Gavin Newsom did there, right? Here, good Doc. Next one here is Nick Chubb. Just signed with the Houston Texans. I love Nick Chubb back in the day when he was on the Browns, super effective. But that ligament knee injury he had that you documented a lot, a year ago, and then he had the foot break last year, the end of the season. What are your thoughts on him joining the Texans as the second back behind Joe Mixon?
I love the fact that Nick Chubb is returning to the NFL and playing. He played a little bit last year and obviously got hurt. But, I mean, that is a devastating injury, the knee dislocation that he suffered. And the highest compliment I can pay Nick Chubb is if that were just a guy, they would not be in the league anymore. But Nick Chubb is not a guy. Nick Chubb in his prime was maybe the guy or, one of the
bell cow. Yeah.
Right? A bell cow.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's still in the league is kudos to Nick Chubb and his hard work. But you can't draft a name. I can't imagine. Look, it's one thing to say Joe Mixon resurrected his career based on a system and whatever, but Joe Mixon was still in his prime and it didn't have injury. Nick Chubb here, I mean, I don't see it as that exciting for Houston. I mean, last year, even when he played, now admittedly this year he could be better. He was 3.3 yards a carry, and the fact that he played at all was great.
Yeah. And he's usually 5 yards a carry, Doc. So you saw that big difference with the injury, yeah.
And Cleveland loves Nick Chubb, the organization and the city. He signed a 1-year deal for $2.5 million. What does that tell you? NFL teams, when you're talking about medical things, don't let guys go. That, I mean, they kept him on. They paid him last year. It was a feel-good story. They did him right. I mean, if the Cleveland Browns don't think he's worth $2.5 million, what does that tell you?
Right.
Look, congratulations to Nick Chubb. I'm just not high on Nick Chubb resurrecting his career to Nick Chubb standards of what we're used to. It's just not Nick Chubb is all. Now, somewhere in fantasy, is he serviceable here? Sure. I mean, does he belong in the NFL? Yes, it's still Nick Chubb, but it's not Nick Chubb. That's all I can say.
And I feel like we're both going to see him probably drafted a little bit higher than normal because just of his name, but you have lower expectations than most, I would say.
And as you know, I'm a guy that likes known commodities and I like veterans in general, but I don't think that, in my draft, he'd have to drop pretty low for me to consider it.
I will mention you did have Nick Chubb when he did injure his knee the second time. So we liked the name before, so you knew what he was.
I think I was in Montana and it was an auto draft, but I was okay with it.
You texted me fat fingers, shoot. You were mad about it. Yeah. I do remember that. All right, next one, Doc. Stefon Diggs, week 8, 2000 last year, he tore his right ACL. They said he's expected to play week 1. He's attending OTAs right now because it's a new team learning the offense, and he doesn't have a brace right now. Are you? Is that good news, or are you still expecting first year off ACL?
He doesn't have a brace right now because he's a wide receiver and they hate braces.
Yes.
Okay. And it was a week or so ago when there was some video posted of Stefon Diggs running a parallel route, and he had a little pep in his step, no question. Did he finish his route before the competing receiver by a little bit? But, I play this game. I know Stefon Diggs is coming off an ACL, but I have no clue which knee he's coming off of. So I literally, on my Z phone, open it up so I get a bigger view, and I look really closely at the video and go, can I tell which knee it is? I could tell. It was his right knee. He's making great progress, but you cannot tell me he was 100% yet. If I can, on one route video, go, yes, that's his right knee, and I'll bet significant money on it. And it was his right knee ACL. Can he play week 1? Looks like he's headed for it. But remember, wide receivers have an advantage. At the line of scrimmage, they know what they're being asked to do. DBs do not. So it's easier, since you're dictating the route, to know what you can do coming off the line of scrimmage, coming off ACL. But I still don't think he's 100%. I still would not be as excited about Stefon Diggs as some seem to be.
Next one I have, Doc, is Amon St. Brown, another big-time receiver. He had a knee cleanup surgery, so nothing not major, but he's expected to be ready for training camp in July. Do you fit that? You've seen the knee cleanup before. That's enough time for him to be ready. It was a month ago. He's just sitting on the side right now. That's good news for St. Brown than bad, right?
Well, it's good news he's gotten it cleaned up. It's bad news he needed the cleanup. But see, going back to what we said earlier, I'm not hating on Amon Ra St. Brown. Obviously, he's been excellent.
Mm-hmm.
But if you asked me, based on this knee cleanup, can he have a good season this year? Yes. He's still with the Lions. Some changes, but yes.
Big offense, yes.
But is he the same top receiver he is today in 2028? I'd have to say no. Based on knee cleanup and whatever. That goes back to our flag football. In 3 years, who really is? I mean, dial the clock back 3 years. The landscape was very, very different in terms of, Puka who? It was all Cooper Kupp.
Right. Devontae Adams was big in Green Bay.
Devontae Adams was huge, right? I mean, like I'm just saying what this knee scope means is, can Amon Ra St. Brown still have a good year? Yes. Is he going to be the guy, futures in a keeper league that you really want to keep all the way through to 2028? Odds are against you there.
Next wide receiver I want to talk about, Doc, is Michael Pittman Jr. I don't know if you remember earlier in the season, he was ruled out. Remember, Rapport's done for the season, back injury, He dealt with the back injury all year, lower performance down year for him, the quarterback changes and such. Would you be worried about drafting him again this year with no surgery in the offseason? Is this a chance that it can linger in the next year or something he's dealing with in his career?
It's never been said what the exact injury is, so it makes it hard. And I'm glad you corrected it there and said Michael Pittman Jr. I might have answered the
when I wrote my
question
notes, I wrote the junior last second. It was almost a mistake. Yeah.
Hey, I know Michael Pittman Sr. He was on our team. I know Michael Pittman pretty well. He's a great guy. Michael Pittman was a running back. And I don't know what Michael Pittman fed Michael Pittman Jr., but he's tall.
Yes, he's huge. Yes.
He's tall and big. Dad wasn't that tall or big. Dad was more your prototypical running back.
All right, Doc.
So I don't know, but I would say that it's good news, hopefully. And especially now that he has who throwing to him? No, I don't know.
Right. You got Daniel Jones, you said. That's what you told everybody to put their bets on earlier. All right, next wide receiver, Doc, is Rashee Rice. He had the LCL tear, and he had a little hamstring tendon issue as well on the right side. Week 4, he had surgery on the hamstring and the LCL. He's not expected to be back at the start of the season. Do you concur with those thoughts with Rashee Rice for the Chiefs?
I haven't seen video of Rashee Rice running around, so I don't know exactly where he's at.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, some cautious optimism, because the assumption is his surgery was likely a repair rather than a reconstruction.
Okay.
And that gives him a little better chance. I want to see him run around first and look at video. But some cautious optimism that he could at some point come back and be effective.
Last one I had, a big name, Doc, is Dak Prescott. He had the hamstring injury in week 9 last year, had surgery to repair the torn hamstring. He said it was a avulsion, I believe I'm saying it right, it was torn off the bone. He has not been cleared for full contact, but is participating in voluntary offseason workouts. Is that the right trajectory? Is he behind, or you expect him to be full go when the season starts?
I think he hasn't been cleared for contact because Jerry paid him and doesn't want him hurt. I don't think it has anything to do with this hamstring at this point in time. And the surgery that you do there is relatively simple. I'm not worried about it from Dak from an injury perspective for Dak. It's offensive scheme. Obviously, they added a wide receiver. There's some shuffle on the O line. Brian Schottenheimer knows how to call an offense. I mean, he was more on the offensive side of the ball always with my teams, even though his dad, Marty, was more defensive and special teams. Brian was always more on the offensive side of the ball. And so I'm not really worried about Dak Prescott. But I know you and the boys are working hard on the preseason injury preview. Last year was, 80 pages? This year will probably be 100.
Yep. They get mad at me because I keep on adding all these players every single day. But, I mean, like you said, people keep dropping like flies. You get more and more information with these OTAs, right? Next
Can
one.
you release it after our Scout Fish draft so we get an advantage? No, just joking.
That's a smart idea, though. Next sport I want to jump into, Doc. By the way, just want to plug the SIC Picks. 3 stars are 65% still. And if it's a 3-star pick with a plus 1.5 spread next to it, Doc, we're 18-3 this year, 3 stars. So that's very, very good. So I remember having this conversation with you. When you see a plus 1.5 and the team's at home, it seems kind of juicy, right? Especially with the injury angles. So we've been seeing a lot of stuff with our algorithm on that. I want to talk about real quick because I'm a huge Phillies fan, obviously. Bryce Harper, he got hit on the elbow on the hit by pitch. Same elbow he had the UCL surgery. Placed on 10-day IL. Do you think this is more something that's going on there, or do you think they just need to have a break with him and let him let that elbow heal? You saw the video, I believe.
I don't think it has anything to do with the UCL.
Okay.
And so I don't see this as any long-term worry. Obviously, if he's stiff and sore in the elbow, I mean, I don't see it leaking much beyond 10 days. I don't know what day he's on now, but the bottom line is this is not one of those elbow injuries that are related to his UCL that there's big concern for.
And they've moved him to first base now since that injury. So he's no longer even an outfielder. And you saw when he was throwing that took damage, right? You said the way he was throwing that will hurt his UCL. Yeah. They figured that out. Got a couple other insights on baseball at SICScore.com. Diamondbacks lost their $200 million pitcher. Tommy John surgery. And then you had Shohei Ohtani. He is scheduled for a live BP today, June 9th. Are you expecting him to pitch at all this year, or are they just playing the slow roll until they figure out what's going on with him?
I think everyone's forgotten that he actually pitches, right?
Yes. He's such a good hitter. Yes, they forget. He's a two-way superstar, yeah. And they're saying, I got a comment here, Doc, that they're saying not just the elbow, it's the wrist for Bryce Harper, and he dealt with the wrist last year. So maybe they're just giving him a break because he has some issues with
the elbow. I don't see anything long-term at all. The guy that I do have more worry about that initially was poo-pooed was Lindor, Francisco Lindor. Where he got hit wasn't really the toe. It was the metatarsal for the 5th toe. And if you really watch that video where he gets hit, and great job by our team to slow it down so I can see it better, is more proximal, more at the base, towards the base of the toe. And he reacts to getting hit. But then when he pushes off the foot and the toe is when he actually collapses in pain. That's why I was like, this fracture is not a nothing. It's just a toe. And Lindor said he'd play through it. He's fine. But that just means he's a competitor. I think he leaks beyond the initial short-term IL.
Well, I have an update on him. So Lindor he did return yesterday.
Oh, he did? Okay.
He returned. So I wanted to ask you a question just lead in this. Mookie Betts also suffered a toe fracture. This is one was hit by pitch Lindor. Mookie Betts was walking to the bathroom at dark. He said, we all did it. Just this time, I actually suffered a toe fracture.
He kicked something?
Yes.
Yeah, so if it's actually the toe distally, like a pinky toe, I mean, protect it, buddy tape it, live with it. Lindor's, I had some more worry about push-off, metatarsal. And yes, I guess it's front foot. Is he DHing or is he playing in the field? I don't know.
So they're both shortstops, by the way. So Mookie Betts is back in the field. So his was the 4th toe, so it was the one closest to the pinky for bets, and then Lindor was the pinky toe. Okay.
But I think
And
that my worry on Lindor is more than the toe, is more at the base and into the metatarsal. I don't know. I think it's great that he's avoided IL. He's missed a few games, obviously.
he was shortstop yesterday, Doc, but they did take him out of the game mid because they were winning by so many runs. So do you think maybe it's something that he probably can't push for, a full game? Maybe they're just giving him a little
I'm
bit of time.
impressed if he's playing shortstop on the broken base of the toe.
He's 0 for 5 with 2 Ks yesterday. So like you said, maybe an IL stint was, just hard.
There's a difference between playing and healthy, right?
Yes.
That's the whole point of the SIC score.
So yeah, go to SICScore.com. We have loads of MLB insights. Go to our special WNBA. We've been doing really good this year, 18-10 on our SIC Picks, Doc. So like you said, there's injuries everywhere, actionable, especially basketball. So May 24th, big superstar WNBA Caitlin Clark suffered a quad injury. She's missed 3 games. They alluded to it might be more than 3 games for. But the thing is, they said 2 weeks, and you released a video saying you thought it was likely longer. We are now at 17 days now, and they just talked to her yesterday. She said she'll be reevaluated this weekend, so the weekend before. And now we'll have this week to see what's going on. Already ruled out this Tuesday, tomorrow's game. Your thoughts now that we're past the 2-week threshold?
Well, look, I get it. She finished the game where she hurt the quad. She said adrenaline or something. But when they said 2 weeks, I was like, that's just not realistic for a muscle injury. Or a tendon injury, a strain of some sort. I was like, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is when you're at the airport and you originally had a 9:13 flight, and they said 10 a.m. That's a check back with me time. That's not a real time. That's a check back. Estimated departure 10 a.m. That's just a check back with me time, and that's what 2 weeks was.
Right.
Then when 10 a.m. comes up, they say. They post 11 a.m., right? Estimated departure time. When they post 12:17, now you're real.
Right.
As a departures time.
Yep.
And Caitlin Clark just isn't there yet. And that's why I said closer to a month.
And that's where we're getting.
So right now, still closer to 2 weeks. We're not right yet. But in another few days, it will be closer to a month, and we'll be right. It's closer to a month. It was never 2 weeks.
But yeah, like you said, and we had those updates in the videos at SICScore.com. We'll keep tabs on all WNBA. We have an injury report written every week. And then the NBA real quick, Doc. We posted an off-season surgery tracker. We have people like Zach Edey getting ankle reconstruction surgery. And then we had Darius Garland with his toe surgery out 4 to 5 months. So we'll keep on. Anytime stuff is leaked in the off-season NBA-wise, we'll put that in our article. Final topic, Doc, I want to talk you through. You mentioned it before, the Tush push. So a couple weeks ago, we had the vote. Green Bay Packers were one of the few teams that did not want this to happen. It's still going to be this year. You've been saying for years, don't ban the play. There's a way to stop it. You could teach a class. I've heard you teach it for 2 years, sitting next to you. So tell me now. We just saw John Gruden talk about it.
I love Coach Gruden. Always have been a big fan. One of the highlights of Super Bowl week for me was meeting up with Coach Gruden and having breakfast with him. Awesome. Great guy. And we were talking about this tush push, and John Gruden today on Twitter, maybe we'll post the link here, said, don't ban the tush push, learn how to stop it. And just because you run it doesn't mean that it's unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
And go to the video, his Twitter. He shows several different teams, from the Bills to the Browns, running the tush push and not having success with it. I think the tush push is misnamed. And what puts this in top of my mind is I actually just yesterday did a little rugby piece, a rugby club on back in San Diego that really spawned a lot of USA rugby players. It was the club that I worked with. And I often get compared rugby and football. The tush push, the way Philadelphia runs it, is a rugby play. Watch a rugby scrum versus a traditional gain 1 yard, 4th and 1. the traditional 4th and 1 in the NFL, low man wins. Get low, dive low, wedge low, root him out. Low man wins. In rugby scrum, it's crouch, engage, and then you win. Watch the Philadelphia Eagles when they're successful. Most of the time, it's not even the push in the tush of Jalen Hurts that gets him across. It's the continuous churning of the legs, not only of Jalen Hurts, but their offensive linemen. And that's like a rugby technique, continuing to move your feet as opposed to anchoring and lunging and getting down low. In a tug of war, does anyone ever win instantaneously? Very rare.
Right.
The winning team is the team whose legs continue to churn, and the losing team is the one that digs into the grass or the sand.
Yep.
That's what the Eagles do. Remember when Jason Kelce used to get called off sides because he put his left hand down next to the ball, which he's legally can, and they thought it was, and nobody used that technique to put their hand down on the ground. And they thought they were calling Landon Dickerson for offside a couple of times, and it wasn't even Landon's arm.
Nope.
If Landon's arm was there, it would be offsides. It's not offsides. But Jason Kelce was trying to snap the ball and be on all threes and then get his arm down on all fours and continue to army crawl and push. Watch the tush pushes, and tush pushes misnomered. Watch the Eagles sneak. It literally is boom, and then they win. Everyone else is boom, and they stop. And I always love it. Whenever the defender leaves their feet and tries to go over the top, they're crowd surfing at a concert. They're out of the play. They will lose. You have to stay on the ground and keep churning your feet. That is the key to the tush push's success to me. It's leverage and doing that. And go look at rugby and whatever. Go look at Gruden's tweet where he goes, look at all these teams that don't do it well. None of them keep churning their feet. They all do the get low, dive down, and then try and win. And so I believe if they banned pushing of a player, the Eagles play would still be successful. The majority of the time, they don't need the tush push. The majority of the time, Jalen Hurts just keeps wriggling his way and moving his feet as the Eagles line does, and then he's able to fall forward without even the push. So even if they ban pushing, the Eagles could still run their play.
Do you remember the Commanders game in the playoffs where they penalized the guy like multiple times and they almost gave him a free touchdown just because they were jumping off side so much? Because like you said, once you're jumping and leaving your feet, you're already out of the play already. You're done.
Leaving your feet isn't going to do it. I mean, look, let's say you jump and leave your feet and you have both arms around Jalen Hurts. If he churns his legs, doesn't he still push you forward if you're not on the ground? I mean, you're not going to bring him down that way, jumping over. That was an interesting – the only thing that was interesting about that, and strategically, I actually liked the way that they did that to try and – because here's the thing. What if every time the Washington got penalized, it started off as 6 inches, then it was 3 inches, then it was 1.5 inches, then it was not even an inch, right? They're penalized. Now, if somehow that got the O-line nervous and they jumped off, it'd be a 5-yard penalty. Huge. So it's worth the gambit to like do that a couple times, especially if you can't stop them. And what you might be hoping for isn't that you don't stop them, that you make the O-line nervous that they need to get off the ball since you're getting off the ball so quickly. You get a false start. That's the game changer.
It's worth the risk, like you said.
It's the arbitrage of a 3-inch penalty versus a 5-yard penalty. Why wouldn't you do that all day long?
So you agree with Gruden that you need to ban the Eagles offensive line before you ban the play, right?
No, you watch. We'll look back on this episode one day and say, "Oh, people have figured it out." And at that point, you know, it still wouldn't be the push part that you ban. It's just, but if once every offense figures out the technique of keeping your feet, And once the defense figures out the technique of keeping your feet and keeping even and treat it more like a rugby scrum, you'll actually have a chance to stop the play. But then by that point, you've committed so many people, you watch the variations of spinning the ball out and getting touchdowns and so forth.
All right, Doc, that's all I had for you. Just go to sixscore.com for all the insights. We have multiple sports, NFL, MLB, NBA, WNBA. They're all going at once, right? Hockey, Stanley Cup right now too.
WNBA, you've been hot. I was like, you sure we want to do WNBA? But there's but you know, I would say it's signal to noise. There's not a lot of signal for the injuries in WNBA, so there's stuff to take advantage of. And heck, we even had a rare play on the NBA game last night that cashed, the NBA Finals.
I had a customer, Doc, ask about Canadian football. So if they want more sports talk, they ask for them, okay? Just gotta
I know some people in the Canadian Football League. No, we're not. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
Anything we do, we just want to be able to do it well is all.
Exactly.
So anyways, thanks for listening and watching. Hopefully this is a good catch-up version to get questions answered live format. And we got to see. Next week I'll be in Georgia with my son at some baseball tournament, 12U PG World Series. That means something to somebody and not necessarily to me.
There you go.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for listening and watching, and keep up the good work. SIC Picks, and of course the preseason injury preview coming all at sicscore.com. Thanks.